you doing?
Hey, it's John. How are you?
I'm good, honey. How are you? So, long story short, I've been clean on Saturday, or this coming up Sunday, I'll be clean for 5 years. I started off an alcoholic. I started using meth, and then I made my first attempt to get clean in 13, and it didn't really work. And then I went out and I became a bottom feeder. I was slamming dope and heroin, and I got clean. I was 87 pounds, and I was sick, and I thought I was dying, and like, I did all kinds of things to get what I needed. You know what I mean? And I lived in the streets of San Bernardino for 18 months. And so yeah, I'm grateful that I'm clean, and I'm passionate about what it is, right? I attend 12-step meetings, and like, I've tried everything outside of that. And that's the gist of it. I mean, I went through a pretty gnarly breakup, and I've lived in Redlands forever. I just moved to Covina to get a new start from the ex. And I got a job at a treatment center, and yeah, like, I work a program. I'm a sponsor. I have sponsees. I work steps. Like, I attend Narcotics Anonymous meetings.
It's kind of, you were kind of put in the right place.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Wow. Listen, yeah. If you're open to it, I would love the opportunity to interview you. We're at the tail end of wrapping up our interviews.
Okay.
We're totally accommodating. We can come to you. We can make it as easy as possible. I was going to ask you one more thing. Do you know any other people that you might think would be a great story?
My son would be amazing at. I don't know if you'd want another end of addiction, right?
That would be awesome.
Okay, then I will call him right now and give him your number.
Cool, yeah. Tell him to just shoot me a text.
Awesome.
Okay, I really look forward to meeting you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, John. All right, honey. Thanks.
Okay,
bye.
My name is Tina Johnson, and we are in Covina, California, West Covina, California. I lived in Fontana as a child. I was born in San Bernardino at St. Bernardine's Hospital. And I had a great life. Like, I had a mom and dad that loved each other, and there was never any drugs or alcohol in our home. I really had a great childhood, but I can remember at a very young age not feeling good enough. And I don't know where that stemmed from, because it wasn't my home life. It was just who I was as a person. My self-esteem was always in question, right? Like, I never felt good enough when I was playing softball, even when I was good at softball. I never felt good enough at school. I always had the nicest clothes and the nicest cars, and my dad was really good about getting us the things we need. There was just something inside of me.
Like validation?
I don't know what it was. I worked a lot of steps on it, and it's just, my self-esteem was just riddled as a young child. And I'm not sure if it was because I had ADHD, right? And I bounced off the wall, and I had this sister that was very calm and good in school, and I was not. And so in 5th grade, I met a girl, and her parents let us drink. And so I can remember that she was sipping alcohol and I was chugging alcohol. And the minute I put it in my body, I felt different. I could talk to anybody.
So fifth grade?
5th grade.
So you were
10 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was drinking vodka like it was water, and immediately it made me feel bigger than who I was. It made me feel very confident in who I was, and I loved that feeling. My poor parents tried. My mom didn't know what to do with me. She wanted them to take me away, and she just didn't know. There was one child that was a handful, and my sister was an angel. And so in 8th grade, I got kicked out of school. Because I couldn't go to class and I was misbehaving. I got put in a Christian school. And the Christian school that I went to, most of the kids there were there because they were in trouble. So it was a win-win for me. So we started drinking a lot then, and we were doing, I was playing a couple leagues of softball, so I was always gone playing softball, and we were drinking on the way to softball, drinking after softball. And then I met my husband, my boyfriend. He was my husband, but I met him, and it kind of slowed down because he was nothing like that, and my life started to turn into like a normal life, right? Like, we got married, and I had my son at 22. Right after I had him, we were in the bars, and I was always the one that drank too much. I was always the one that made the scenes, and he would have to take care of me. And And then we had my son at 22, or we had him at 22, and then it was just a party for me.
Let's just introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Tyler Johnson. I am since I was 11 in Redlands, California. My family life was a little unique in a sense. Like I kind of lived a Romeo and Juliet type of lifestyle. Grew up initially from, my earliest memory is Grand Terrace. Parents lived together and I played sports, baseball, rode BMX bikes. Pretty normal childhood. We'll start at 7 or 8 years old, right in there. I don't believe I saw my parents fight a lot in my eyes, but I know I heard it. Like it's something that rattles in my head, and I don't know if that's something I made up or something I actually heard.
I had him when I was 22. I had my daughter when I was 28. And the drinking just kind of flowed with the kids, right? If the kids weren't there, I was binge drinking. I was the one that was always too drunk to finish the party. After I had my daughter, shortly after that, me and my ex-husband split up. And so in this split up, right, of losing my kids and losing my ex-husband, I absolutely found comfort in alcohol.
I remember them sitting me down and telling me basically that they weren't going to be married anymore. They weren't going to be together.
Did you see it coming?
Looking back, I would say yes now, but at that age, I don't think you can understand.
How did you react to that?
I remember I went to my room after the conversation. I think they asked me if I had any questions, and I said no. And I remember I kind of went to my room, and I don't know if it was pouting, crying. It was a really odd situation because how much of that can an 8-year-old understand, right? I mean, they understand that the parents aren't going to be together anymore. Maybe they don't love each other anymore, but you don't understand at 8 what that means. I don't think you can understand what love looks like. The ins and outs, the goods, the bads, the ugly. I don't think there's any way you can comprehend the fullness of that. I just think that it was more of a, like, what do you mean we're moving? Like, what do you mean I'm not going to the same school? What do you mean you guys aren't going to be together? Like, I'm not going to see my mom and dad every day.
The minute the split happens with him and me, we're living in the same house, and I'm drinking to numb the pain. I look back and I think, man, when did I become an alcoholic? Like, when did it cross the threshold, right? Because I was at this point, I had alcohol under my desk at work, right? Everybody at my job knew that I was drinking at work, but I was doing a good job, and so they were kind of turning a blind eye to it.
Nobody ever said anything?
No. That was probably the only area in my life that was manageable, was my job, because I was good at it, right? I went home and I could never make my kids dinner because I was too drunk by the time I got home.
So you would drive home drunk?
I would drive home drunk, yeah. Far too many times that I can count.
She was always drunk, especially at this 12, 13. My mom was
driving drunk?
Oh yeah, my mom would.
Did you know?
My mom would drive like this, the bottle in between her legs like this. I watched my mom get pulled over with the bottle in between her legs, and she grabbed it and slid it under the seat, and the cop just let us go.
Did you know that you're not supposed to drink and drive?
Yeah, I didn't. At 13, I wasn't bold. I didn't never chest it up really to my mom. Besides that didn't hurt, but I had never gotten stern with my mom. I never said you have a problem.
I ended up having one DUI, and that's all that I had, and I don't know how that happened except with God's grace. I was driving drunk on a regular basis, and so then after we split, I meet this gentleman, and he sold drugs. So it was like in the blink of an eye, right? I turned from this like lady with a white picket fence to like I was with a drug dealer. I was just so inebriated all the time. I just never imagined myself going there, right? But it only takes an opportunity. Right. That's all it took, was an opportunity. We had tried Coke. I tried Coke for the first time, and that was not my thing. I didn't like it. I tried to bite my ear off. You couldn't take me in public. I was a mess. And so we did that a couple times, and I did ecstasy, tried to saw my arm off, and so that was.
Saw your arm?
Yeah, I tried to cut my arm off.
Like on ecstasy?
Yeah, and so they're like, man, we're not gonna give her that anymore.
Leading into 13 years old, my mom actually seized out, passed out in front of me. Hit the deck in front of me. I remember right before she did it, all she said was, "Tyler, I love you." And I remember I was standing with my back to her, and I went to turn to tell her I love her too, and boom, she hit the deck. and she just started convulsing, like, and it's scared. It's, oh man, it's like, it's so weird that it's in my brain. But I remember like looking at her like my mom's dying, and she kept repeating that, man, that I love you. And it's like, now looking back, it's almost like I wish she was saying anything else. Like, it's so weird that is what sticks in my brain about that entire situation. The fact that she was repeating that, man. And it's like, it almost like is a haunting thing, right? I hate to think about it. And I remember my mom's boyfriend really wasn't much of a help. He was more like, almost like this was a burden. And I remember I was 13 and a half, right around 14. I was carrying my mother out, and she was like repeating that, man, I love you, and like foaming almost out of her mouth, like convulsing in my arms. So I'm carrying her out to the street, and my grandpa and grandma are coming to get her. And I just remember like the horror of my grandmother's face, like seeing, I'm sure they knew, I don't know if they knew how bad, but I remember like, it can't be a pretty sight seeing your grandkid carry out your kid to put them in the back seat of your car to go to the hospital because they're seizing out.
So my ex-husband's going to take my kids away for a vacation. So the deal was we were just going to do coke for that week, and then we were going to stop. That was it. And so I had never participated in the drug setup, right, of cutting lines, or he always did it. And so as you know, he called our Connect, and our Connect was on a cruise or something. And so he gave him a number of a different guy. And the guy came over, and he handed it over, and I asked him if I could cut us up a line. And I didn't know, but it was meth. And so I put this line in my nose, and it took my soul immediately. And I immediately feel like I have the potential of being a good mom again, right? Because I hadn't made my kids a meal in so long, because I'd get home from work and alcohol would take its toll, right? I can't tell you how many times my son found me naked and would have to get me up in bed, and immediately I was somebody, right? Like I was awake, and I was alert, and I'm not missing things, and the sky looked different. And it was a euphoria that I'd never thought I would ever experience, right? It was, I fell in love with it immediately. Like when people talk about addiction and like, you just don't know, I'm gonna tell you that I'm the one. The minute I put that in my nose, I couldn't stop doing it. Like I did it against my will. I did anything I could to get it. And and my kids noticed right away, right? Like, wow, Mom, what's going on? And then it just fed into that, like, this can't be so bad. It can't be so bad.
Moving into 16, my mom was there for all my key life events. When I got my license, my mother was there. When I had my first girlfriend, my mother was there. You know, or when I brought my first girl home, like to meet the family, my mother met her, which was embarrassing. She passed out drunk naked that night. And she drove us home, which looking back is crazy. She drove another kid home drunk.
Fast forward, like I had done alcohol and meth, right? Like it got to the point where I was having to put alcohol in my butt because I was having seizures. My esophagus was so eroded. It was starting to erode. I was a mess. You know, I had jaundice. The whites of my eyes were yellow. My skin was glowing yellow. And I was 38 years old, you know, and I got hit by a big rig. She T-boned me. It wasn't a fast accident, but it was an impactful one because obviously it was a big rig. And so I started seeing a doctor, and they put me on all these prescription medications, and I knew at that point, right, I already have 2 addictions. I can't be doing that. And so I went into the doctor, and I was really honest with him. And the beautiful thing is his daughter was an addict, right? She was a heroin addict. And so who was slipping through his fingers. And so he took a lot of interest in me, and he was trying to figure out how to make me well. So he's doing this blood work on me, and this is in May of 2013. I was 38 years old. And I went in, he said, I need you to come in, and I need to talk to you about what's going on about the accident. And so I went in there, and he opened up the chart, and he looked at me, and he said, you're dying from alcoholism. And if you don't stop this, you're going to be dead by December. And I had my son with me, who at that point was 15 years old. And
he was in the room with
He was in the room with me. And
wow.
And I left that hospital and I went and got alcohol. Because I just didn't know how to live without it. I didn't know how.
With your son there? Or?
With my son. And, you know, at this point, he had already seen me have a seizure. He had already dug through my house and seen every alcohol bottle that I had hidden. He found drug stashes, you know. And so the cat was out of the bag. Mom is out of control. And so in June of 2013, to appease everybody, I went to Kaiser to detox. And they had to medically detox me because I was having seizures. And so I went in for a 7-day medical detox. They tried to pull me out of it a couple times, and every time they did, I had seizures. So it took me 7 days to clean up. They got me out of that. They tried to find me a facility to go to, but I was clean now. So I thought, I know how to do this now. I'm clean, right? And so I went out and I got 59 days clean. And but I didn't change anything. I'm sitting in this little house, trying to figure out how to live without the use of drugs or alcohol, and I didn't know. I didn't have any tools. I didn't know what to do, you know. And that boyfriend that I did drugs with for the first time, right? He was beating me senseless, and I was so addicted to drugs that I couldn't leave him, right? Because I didn't know anybody in the scene except the people he knew, and my kids would have to watch me come home with black eyes and choke marks on my neck, and I don't know how it happened other than drugs.
I always had a soft spot for my mom, that if I saw her cry or I saw her pass out, like I had to be her savior. Like I had to be not her man, but the man in her life to make sure she was okay. Right? Which sucks because that boyfriend started to put hands on her, and he was a big dude. Huge dude. And I remember there was nothing I could do. There was nothing.
Did you watch them put hands on her?
Never watched it physically happen, but she would walk out of the room with like a black eye or like handprints on her neck.
The more he hit me, the more drugs I put in my body, right?
And did you stay with him because that was your connection to
That was
drugs?
my connection to drugs.
So it's not even that you loved him.
Absolutely not.
That's the only way I could get.
That's the only way. And it's like crazy because, you know, I was just talking to my son on the way over here, right? And until you're in it, you don't understand, right? Like, I don't know how many times that I would look at my children, right? And I would say to them, like, I'm going to be right back. You know, I'm going to be right back. And I would get out there and I would put one in me, and I didn't have a say anymore, right? Like the drugs controlled every area of my life. Like it said when I came and went, it said when I seen my kids and when I didn't, right? And if given a choice of like gas money to go see my kids or $20 for a sack of dope, I had to go that way. At
16 is when my life, when I would say everything spiraled downhill for me and my mom.
In September 9th of 2013, I made the decision to go into treatment, you know, and the interesting thing about this is I didn't even get this when I was clean, but so I go into treatment, right? And in San Bernardino, California. And I didn't want to be clean. I just wanted my kids to talk to me again, right? Like I wanted to be a mom. By this point, I have no family. Nobody's talking to me. Nobody wants anything to do with me, right? I'm like a liar, cheat, and a thief. And so I go into this treatment center to try to get my son to talk to me again. You know, I would call him and he would say, my mom's dead, and he would hang up on me.
My emotions, I didn't know how to deal with them, right? I had no mother. Like my dad did a good job of telling me he loved me and he was proud of me, but you don't have a mom, right? There was nobody to soften me, I suppose. Like I was just a dick.
Rough,
yeah. Just a dick, like, you know, and I got a call. My mom had a little bit of time clean. And I got a call from her counselor at this rehab place in San Bernardino. And they're like, you should come see your mom. I was like, okay. And I was on board with it, but not for the reasons they thought. I wasn't there to be nice. I took her this song. I went there with the purpose of telling her, you need to listen to this song and you might understand how I feel. It was Fort Minor, Where'd You Go? And that's kind of a sad song, so that didn't even like represent fully how I felt. But I just kind of told her, like, dude, like, you need to get, I was a little strong. I was like, you need to get your life together, me and Caitlin are never going to see you again. That's my sister.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, we're never going to see you again.
Were you crying?
No, anger.
She cried?
Yeah. Because she thought I was going to come back and be like lovey-dovey. But yeah, that visit was maybe 5 minutes. So I left.
Give her a hug, goodbye? Or...
Maybe. I don't remember. But it definitely wasn't loving. Like, it was probably, if it was a hug, it was a side hug. There was not a lot of love in my heart at this point for anybody. I was just angry.
And then it was the following week, right? Like, I'm at this treatment center. I'm in blackout still, right? Because you got this blackout period, and my counselor comes out and she says, your son wants you to listen to this song. And she had printed out the words for me on a piece of paper. And it's Fort Minor, where did you go? And so I'm sitting on the ground, and she starts to play this song, and it just talks about, like, you weren't there for me. And for the first time, I'm clear-minded, right? And I'm processing the things that I've done to my children. Because when I was using, I never thought I was hurting anybody but me. Never. And so I listened to that song, man, and I broke down, and I still have that sheet with the song lyrics on it today. But so I completed that treatment. And I got out, and they told me things like go to meetings, get a sponsor, do some service. And so I did that. I got out, and I started to go to Narcotics Anonymous meetings.
I don't know if it was 2 weeks to a month. It wasn't much longer after my mom says, hey, because her rehab was in San Bernardino, or sober living was in San Bernardino. She goes, hey, I'm in Redlands. They're having an event at a park. I want you to come over here. I was like, okay. And I remember going down there with good intention. I remember riding my bike down there like, maybe we're onto something here, you know? And I pull up, man, it's an event. It's like a tent, man. They're giving out free stuff. Everybody's laughing. Everybody's just having a good time, dude. And I remember walking my bike through there to meet my mom, and I felt like this rage coming on. Like, it felt like my chest was caving in. Walking through it, seeing all these addicts laughing, man, and having a good time pissed me off, dude. Sent a rage through me like I haven't felt. So when I finally saw my mom with a group of friends laughing, having a good time, I just remember walking up to her, and I was like, this is fucking fun for you guys? To all her friends, I was like, you guys are having fucking fun? And everyone's face is kind of like, and I was like, I'm at home fucking, I don't have a mom. I was like, but you guys are getting some goodie bags. You guys are having a good fucking time. And I was like, my sister doesn't have a mother, but you're down here getting some fucking stress relief balls. And I was like, I headbutt lockers, Mom, because of you. But you could come down here and kick it with your homegirls. And she just kind of looked at me, and I was like, if my dad died, I'd get up there and I'd have so many words to say about all he did for me. And I said, if you died, I don't know if I wouldn't have a fucking word for you, Mom. I said, you're dead to me, dude. Don't call me. I said, don't call me. Don't call my sister. I said, you're fucking nobody to me. Don't bother.
Did you cry?
Yeah. Not like I am now. Like, not like I'm getting now.
Yeah.
Anger, like.
Why are you crying now?
Man, because I remember what that kid felt like. I remember coming to the grips with, like, I don't care about my mom. Like, I remember that emotion.
Yeah.
And looking back now, that hurts. That's sad, you know? Like, that's my mom.
So I was focusing on, my ex-husband had let me move in with him to try to get some footing with my kids. And I wasn't working. I was just going to meetings, and I stayed clean I took an honest year clean. I still have the picture that they took of me and my two children. I had gotten all that repaired, my relationship with them. And then somewhere in that, I decided that I could start drinking again.
My dad always had mad love for my mom. So my dad let her move in back to the house, not to be together, but so my mom could get back on her feet, which was good. Like, I kind of for a second had my mom back in my life, you know? Every Thursday night, because we had Friday games, all my the O-line would come over. I played center, and we would all sleep at my house like it was like a sleepover or whatever before the game on Friday, before we went to school. And my mom would wake up early as hell in the morning and make us all like a big ass breakfast, like French toast, eggs, bacon, like all out, dude. And she would, I don't even know how much product she went through.
She was clean at this point.
Yes, for a little bit.
Okay.
Yes. Because my dad moved her back in so she can get back on her feet. But I remember my mom, like, all she did was sit on the couch. Like, she just chilled on the couch. And now knowing that's because she didn't know how to be herself. Like, she didn't know how to be Tina clean. She only knew how to be Tina an addict. Like, she didn't know how to blow dry her hair without being drunk or being high. She didn't know how to go shopping without being drunk she didn't know how to take her kids to school without being drunk or high. My mom didn't know how to deal with a stubbed toe sober. Right? She stubbed her toe. It was time to drink. She woke up. It's time to drink. She had a sore throat. It was time to drink. She got a promotion. It's time to drink. Right? Your kid had a bad day at school. I need a drink.
Right.
You know? So as my mom got back and started dealing with her own stuff, I mean, I can't imagine the guilt and shame that came with that. Like the things that she had already done to people, to herself, to her kids. So she's dealing with all this. Well, then now she's living in a house like a normal household, as normal as you can, right? Exes are living together, but now I'm coming home. I think she was even doing my laundry at the time. Like she was trying to make up for lost time as much as she could with everything. So I think she was finding things to preoccupy herself. And I think a lot of addicts do that. Like go to a meeting, watch how much coffee's drank, watch how many cigarettes are smoked, right? They all got their little, like they have to stay busy. They have to do something, right? Because your mind's a dangerous place, right? So when she had nothing to do and she's just sitting on the couch, where does her mind go? To shame, to guilt, to bad. How do you get rid of that? You have a drink. I had actually, right around the same time, I had backed out of my driveway and rear-ended, or I hit a Volkswagen Bug with my car and like smashed the door in. Well, the insurance claim was going to be more than the car's worth, so my dad ended up just buying the car from the neighbors and gave it to my mom. So it worked out. My dad was like, hey, you know, like, I'll hook you up kind of a thing. You're doing good. Well, then my mom started, you know, she had a car now. She didn't have to sit around, so she was leaving. Didn't think much of a problem was going on. I didn't think anything weird. You know, everything seemed normal. This was moving into my senior year of high school now. She's coming to all my football games still. Everything seems normal. Fast forward, in my head, a year was normal, right? Like 17 or 16 to 17 was kind of normal. 16 years old to 17 years old is pretty normal. Well, as I move in, and I base it around football because that was the next big thing that happened. Keep in mind, I said my mom has come to all my football games.
Right.
Well, as we get close, and my junior year, we won state. So we went all the way and she was there for all of it. Now we're coming into my senior year, which in high school, that's a big deal, right? Like it's my senior year, right? It's my time. So we're a good team. We're still playing good. My mom's coming to all the games and I don't notice a problem. She's still making breakfast for us. No big deal. Well, and this was the turning point of where something was wrong. The week 2 of the playoffs. My mom was not home. She missed did come home for a couple of days, which was weird. So she came back. Thursday night, she comes back. Nothing happened. I'm good. Cool. Made breakfast for us Friday morning. Normal Thursday, or a normal Thursday for that year. So we get ready, and I remember we're playing a good team. I go to the game, or I go to school. And something came over me to text my mom like, hey, you're going to be there tonight, right? And at this point, she had gotten clean for a while. I gave her a necklace with a cross on it, which is weird because I wasn't religious. I didn't believe in God at this point. But I gave it to her. And moving into my senior year, she had given it back. And she said, wear this on the football field, it'll keep you safe. So I did. Every game I had it tucked in between my pads. Well, I was texting her all day. I'll be there. So we get on the bus to leave. We were going to Rancho Cucamonga for the game. And this was second week of playoffs. You win or you go home. And I remember I was texting my dad like, hey, is mom with you? And he was like, I'm trying to get a hold of her right now. Okay. 10 minutes goes by, we're driving. His mom with you. I'm trying to get a hold of her right now. So we get to the game. Well, once you get to the game, the phone's gone, right? You're warming up, whatever. Well, the guy who was our water boy was also one of my good friends. He was trying to find out if my mom was going to be there. And I didn't catch wind of whether or not she was. But I think I knew walking out that she wasn't. I think I kind of knew. So I walked out, and it's game time. We warmed up. Parents start arriving. I'm looking in the crowd, don't see them. Well, now it's game time, and we go out on the field, and I remember looking up in the crowd. The defense was on the field, and finding my dad. And my dad looked at me, and my dad knew what I was asking without me asking. My dad just kind of shook his head. And so...
That was the first game she missed.
My last game I ever played. Yeah, we ended up losing. And I remember throughout the game I was hoping that she was going to show up. Right? Like,
Kept looking.
I kept looking. And at the end of the game when I was walking, every game I'd walk, after we win, lose, we'd walk to the rail and the parents could meet us there and give us a hug. And I remember walking and my dad just looking at me and just shaking his head. And I just turned and walked to the locker room, and I remember I took the necklace off and put it on threw it on the ground and walked off the field. And it's like so like cliche or lame, it was a football thing, but like that was devastating to me. Like, because there's so much like I put my heart into that game. Like I put my soul into that football game, and she knew what it meant to me. So for her to know what that meant to me and her not to be there, like that hurt me.
Where was she?
I don't know.
She retired.
She doesn't remember. She doesn't remember. And that broke something in me that I still like. I think will be there for a long time. That hurt my soul. Walking off that football field and not seeing my mom, cause she like. Again, it's lame, but man, I poured my like I broke bones for that sport, man. Like I dedicated everything I had to that sport. And you weren't there for the last time that I'll ever put a football helmet on. Like you missed that.
Right.
Right? You missed me walking off the field. Like we won it all the year before. And now we're walking off the field and I don't have my mom to give me a hug and be like, I'm proud of you. Like my dad was there and I feel bad I took that moment from my father. But like in a moment like that, like a moment of weakness like that, you know, you want your mom, you know? So that one was rough. That was rough. And immediately I felt right back to where I was. Like, all right, like that's how it is, you know? Like I hung my head and cried, but it was real quickly dried up. Like that's how it is. All right then, that's how it's going to be, Mom.
I call and I make a hair appointment because I'm going to chop my hair off because you know what? That's what I need to cut my hair off. And my appointment was at 10. I stopped to get a pack of cigarettes and I asked the guy if I could have a bottle of Kessler. And that was at 9:46 in the morning. And the kid behind me says, well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. He says, you've had an account here before. I didn't think you did that anymore. And I said, well, I do today. And he handed it to me. And within a brief period of time, I had a realization that alcohol was going to kill me. And so I drank for a bit and then I switched right back to meth. And it wasn't long after that I was kicked out of my ex-husband's house with $1.17 in my pocket. And I had nowhere to go, right? Everybody from the fellowship knew that I had relapsed. Mm-hmm. And so my son had hit this Volkswagen, right? Had an accident. My ex-husband didn't want to pay for it. So he bought it outright and gave it to me. So now I'm in this beater Volkswagen. It's in the middle of winter and I have nowhere to go. And somehow I land in San Bernardino, California in my car with $1.17 in my pocket. So I end up at a drug dealer's house and he kind of gives me the lowdown on how to sell. He throws me an 8-ball of dope and says, turn the money around in 24 hours. And if you don't do it, I'm going to kill you. But I turned it around and I was really good at that, right? And so I start selling drugs now. I'm not selling enough drugs though to live outside of my car. I can't afford a place to live or anything. And I'm going to tell you that the first time I went into treatment, right, I had an alcohol problem and a meth problem, you know, and I put a little bit of meth in my nose and a lot of alcohol in my body. And I remember sitting in meetings, right? And I'm like, man, they did heroin. I want to sit far away from them, right? Or they were homeless. I don't want to sit by them. Or they shoot dope. And I'm definitely not going to be by those people, right? Back then, I didn't realize that the attitude of indifference that I had towards the disease of addiction, right? I thought I was somebody different than they were. I'm not as bad as them, right?
Right.
And then I hit the streets of San Bernardino. I started putting a needle in my arm.
So you moved into heroin.
I was doing mostly meth, right?
Okay.
I was slamming mostly meth. But absolutely, I dabbled in anything had, right? Like anything of yours I wanted. And like my bottom had came so, like I would sit in this Volkswagen and I would slam dope and I just wanted to die because I couldn't figure out how to get back to my babies. I couldn't. And the obsession and the compulsion was growing by the minute. And so I'm living in my car and I just want to die. I want to die. And I'm so angry at God because he won't take me. Like I'm not even good enough for him to take me. I got down to 87 pounds and I had abscesses. I had abscesses and mismarks on my body. And I didn't put any water or nothing in my body. So every time I would try to slam, my veins would roll. And I would have to hit myself 13 times before I could get in the vein. And it was the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. And the funny thing about this tattoo is I'm walking up Ukaipa Boulevard. I have one shoe on, the other shoe, I don't know where it went, right? With a bottle of whiskey and I just want to die. And so I had this money, man, and I walked into this tattoo shop and I just wanted this date on me so bad because like this was where I first found freedom. And I couldn't get back to it. I couldn't. Like I would try to stack up minutes, and for me, like a minute clean was like a long time, you know? And so I walked into this tattoo place, man, and the lady's like, "What would you like?" And I said, "I want this date on me," right? And so I got a bottle of whiskey between my legs and a loaded rig behind my ear, right? And she's tattooing me and she goes, "What is this date?" I go, "That's my clean date," right? And she pulls back and she's like, you know you're not clean, right? And I said, "I just need to figure out how to get back to it. So I need it on my body." And so fast forward, right? I get in another relationship that's volatile, but through that relationship, right? He had this really great job. And so he's got this good job. I land this decent job because now we've kicked the meth and now we're just drinking, doing a lot of weed. And so I wasn't on the streets. Like I had became such an animal, right? That I'm in San Bernardino and like I would wait for people to leave so I could shower in their front yards. By the end, I wasn't doing anything. I was mooching off anything you had or anything they had, or I would have to do what I had to do. You know what I mean? I had to offer my body up at times for things. That's just how bad it got. We were starting to build this life, right? But there was little bouts of domestic violence. And, but he had this little boy and I loved this little boy. You know, his mom was in her addiction, and so I was the only mom he really knew. And I get the opportunity, right, to raise this little boy. And my kids don't want to have anything to do with me. I'm now the one, right, that he needs, right? Again, it feeds my ego, right? The low self-esteem in me is getting fed because somebody needs me, right? And so I turned a blind eye to a lot of that stuff.
My mom was homeless at this point, and then she started dating a different guy and got a little bit of stability. I started seeing her some more. But every time my mom would relapse, though, she would get herself into a shitty situation and call me to bail her out. Like, I can't count, after that football game, after I graduated high school, I can't count how many times I was doing something where I had to stop what I was doing and go pick my mom up, carry her, put her in the truck, pack up her minimal belongings, and take her to my grandparents. I can't count how many times. She got in a fight with her man and they tore the house up, breaking it, and neighbors are calling the cops. And I mean, I would pick her up. I would go to pick her up and she would be tripping, falling out the house because she's torched, drunk. And I would have to pick her up and, you know, take her to grandparents' house.
I have a mom and a dad, right? My mom's the epitome of boundaries, the epitome. She will drive by me in the rain and see do you want to get clean? If I say no, she'll keep going, right? She was the epitome of that. My dad, on the other hand, wasn't that way. Like, he would sneak me in the house when she wasn't there. He would save his change because she took his bank card away so he wouldn't give me money. And, but like, my dad loved me when I was unlovable. you know? And so I start getting calls from my mom, and I already know if mom's calling me, something's up, because she don't fuck around with me when I'm loaded, right? And so she calls me and she says, you need to come over, you need to come over. And my dad had been going through some treatments, some radiation treatments for bladder cancer, and she says, you know, we need you to come over here.
November 5th, 2018, we all got a call to come over to my grandma's house, my grandma and grandfather's house. And my grandpa had battled with cancer and beat it. And so we all show up, and we always, my grandfather was always in the garage. He was like a old school dude, man. Hot rods, choppers, like he was always in the garage, always tinkering with something. And I remember walking into that room, and my dad was there too, because my dad, that's who he called mom and dad, was my mom's parents. And walking into that room, we all knew something was off. And we got the news that my grandpa had stage 4 cancer.
My mom's house was set up where the garage was set in the back, right? So you had to go through a back alley to get to the garage. And so I wasn't going to go through the front door because then I had to see my mom. So I'm going to get in the back door. My dad will be in the man cave. And I'm going to figure out what's going on. I'm going to get the fuck out, right? And so I go into the garage. And my dad just, you know, I'm on my phone trying to re-up. And like he slides his chair over to me and he says, Tina, I think I'm dying. And like, I need you to be here for me. And like, you're talking about an addict that can't stay clean because it's too hot or too cold, right? Or the wind blows, or it's Cinco de Mayo or whatever, right? There's always a reason to get loaded.
Right.
And now my person is gonna die of cancer, and I gotta figure out how to be there for him.
Everybody was arguing about whether or not he needed to do treatment and try to beat cancer. And I said we should do whatever he wants to do. If he wants to fight, then we fight. If he doesn't, then we don't. And that was my 2 cents, and I pretty much left. Like, I didn't deal with emotion well. And I think that was a result of my mother holding in my emotions. I didn't know how to deal with them or what they were, how to process any of them. So I wasn't there for the conversation where a promise was made to my grandfather from my mom. I wasn't there for it.
And so backing up, like I went to that treatment center in 2013, right? And as a family, we made a deal that Tina would never make another promise because I was such a liar, you know? And I would always tell my kids, I promise I'm coming back, and I never fucking came back. And so fast forward, it's now 2018, at the end of 2018, and he's asking me, as he's staring me in the face and telling me he's gonna die, that he needs me to promise him that I'm not gonna use. And I'm gonna tell you that I looked at him with my entire soul, and I told him I promise I'm not going to use, with zero intention to keep that promise. And I got in my car, man, and I drove back to that hotel like 110 miles an hour. And I got back, and before I even got my car to the place that I could park, I knew that my door was open and there was people in there with drugs. And I got out of my car, man, and I started putting people out of my room, and I started to put drugs out of my room and alcohol out of my room. I don't know how I didn't get kicked out of this hotel. And I closed the door and I locked it, and I crawled into bed and I started to cry because I didn't know how I was going to do this. I didn't know how.
It was all a broken promise. I don't believe you're going to stay clean. There's no way, right? We've been down this road. I know what the outcome of this is. I'm going to get a call. I'm going to have to come pick you up drunk because some dude laid hands on you. Like, I just know the way this goes. I'm not going to get my hopes up. Well, she stayed clean. My grandfather ended up passing. And at that point, when my grandfather passed, I don't know what changed in me, but something said if I don't support my mother, she's going to get loaded again. Right? Because you go from not knowing how to function, not knowing how to deal with your emotions, not knowing how to be Tina without being drunk or high, so my dad just died. How do you deal with that?
The very next day, man, I woke up and I went to a meeting. And it was a meeting that I just caused a scene at, right? Like, I showed up there intoxicated because I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to fucking fight people. And I land in this meeting in the morning. And I'm sitting there. And it was November 5th, 2018. And the meeting's going on and it's going on. And like, I knew I had to say something or I was going to die. And like at the end of the meeting, I cried out that my dad was dying and I needed help to stay clean. I needed to be his daughter. You know, I'd been in that meeting and I'd been such an asshole, but they treated me like immediately, like they were there for me. Immediately, I was a part of something bigger than me, you know? And so I went to my ex-husband for, I think it was about a week or so. And then I went to my mom and dad's house. And so now here I am with just days clean and I'm watching this man wither away, you know? The guy that would save his change in coffee cans so my mom didn't see it, so I could at least have something to eat and something to drink when I came over there, you know. Would let me get in the shower when he knew that he was going to catch backlash from my mom, right? Because my mom wanted no part of that. She was all about the tough love. And so for a brief moment of time, like I got to be his daughter. And
how long?
My dad died when I was 5 months clean. So my dad passes away, man, and I'm just going to tell you the very first fucking thing I did was I called a member from Narcotics Anonymous. And I said, my dad's dead and I don't know what to do. And, you know, I leaned on 3 or 4 people during that process, man, and they brought food to my parents' house. And they made sure that I was showering. Like, it was a love that I had never felt before in my life. You know, at 43 years old, like I'm learning how to be a friend and have friends. Like at 43 years old.
If they were real friends.
Real friends. Yeah. 43 years old, like I just got an opportunity to be a daughter to my dad that I hadn't been for so long.
I just knew this is the best shot my mom has right now. So she did, man. She did the damn thing. And she started going to meetings, started getting a sponsor, started working steps, started showing up for people. When she promised to do something, she did it. So I kept going to meetings with her. I kept going to meetings. And then I went to a Dodger game. I was 23, maybe 20, right around 23. I went to a Dodger game with my grandma.
So my hand get broke in a domestic situation, right? And so I leave the house. I'm sitting in this parking lot. I'm like 2.5 years clean, man, and I don't want to do this shit anymore. And I'm sitting in front of a liquor store. And I'm willing to cash it all in. And one of my sponsees tries to call me. I'm sitting in this car. I got a broken fucking arm. And she calls and I try to ignore the call and I answered it. And like I just started crying and I said, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like I'm living this life, like I'm involved in this volatile relationship and I'm trying to sponsor women. I feel like a fucking hypocrite. Like I don't want to do this anymore. And she says, Tina, please go to your mom's. Please go to your mom's. Now I had never just went to my mom's without my dad being there, right? My dad was my person. And so I'm sitting in this parking lot, man, and all I want to do is fucking die because I know what it looks like if I walk in and pick up that bottle. I know. I've already tried and trued it, right? I'm not going to ever be able to go in and get a bottle and drink like a lady. That's not my story.
Right.
Not. So
right.
I get in my car, man, and I drive to my mom's house, and my mom has to work the next day, and so she's in bed. All the lights are off, man, and I knocked on her door. And she opened the door and I just said to her, like, I need help. And I could tell in that moment that she had been waiting for that for so long, you know?
What did she do?
She just pulled me in and like, she didn't ask me anything about my hand. She got me some food and she cut it up like I was a little kid for me. And she was giving me baths and washing. My mom was amazing. And what
like
I did,
the whole relationship just changed.
It changed. And I'm going to tell you, that was in May of 2021. Okay, so when I move in there, I don't even know what's coming down the pike. Like, I don't even know, right? And I move in and I'm building this relationship with my mom, right? And so I think I was there a couple weeks and she pulls me out in the garage and she's got something in her hands, right? And I'm sitting across from her and she says, when your dad was sick, he gave me something. And he wanted me to hold on to it just in case you didn't stay clean. And she said, I really feel like I can give this back to you now. I feel like I don't need it. I'm so proud of you. And she hands me this driver's license that expires in like 2015 or something, right? And she said, your dad took this from your purse.
My grandma had scoliosis, so her getting out of the car slow or whatever, not really a big deal. She's perfectly fine. It was the first Dodger game I took my fiance to, who was the girl I was mean to when I was 11. It was my first kiss, and now we're engaged. And so it was her first Dodger game. She was an Angel fan, so my grandma gave her shit the entire time. And we left there. It was a great game. We left, no problem. The following Saturday, we get a call that grandma's going to the hospital because her chest hurts. This was during COVID. So we're like, okay, you know, grandma might have COVID, you know.
On July of 2021, I'm in the kitchen and my mom calls me and says, I don't feel good. Something's going on. I think I have COVID. And I took her to the hospital. It was on a Sunday. And she died the following Sunday. She was full of cancer.
They started doing some tests. She has stage 4 cancer. So now it's time for my mom to mount up and be a daughter again, you know, and she's clean at this point. But she got clean, immediately walked through her dad's death. Now she's about to walk through her mother's death. And from the time my grandma got told that, she never left the hospital. She died. She died 1 week and 3 days after the Dodger game. And it was devastating to the family, man. Grandpa dying is one thing. Grandma dying, right? Like nobody lays a hand, nobody hurts grandma, you know? Like, and I can't speak for her emotion, but I knew what I was going through. Like I'm never going to get a call from my grandma again. I'm never going to get a happy birthday from my grandma again. Right? I'm not going to get the special bag she gives me on Christmas. And my mom showed up. My mom was there for me. When I was hurting, when I was crying in pain for my grandma, my mom was there for me. My mom was a mom to me. She died in August or July. She died late July. When Christmas time came around, my mother gave me a special bag that my grandma gave me. She went and got the bag my grandma, and she said, I'm gonna carry on this tradition. And like those are stories of like what made me go like, man, dude, I have my mom back. Like my mom's gonna carry on some traditions that are like near and dear to my heart that she wouldn't be able to do if she was still using.
Only as a result of the program, right? Like I can tell you this, that like I would have never had that opportunity to heal this relationship, right? I would have never had the opportunity to make anything right. If I wasn't where I was, right? If I would have made a decision to go use when my dad died, and I thought about it, the day my dad dies, right? Like I'm walking around this house and I'm like, where the fuck can I get loaded at, right? And there's people everywhere and I'm like, God, I just want them to go away so I can get loaded. And I just didn't, right? I didn't. And then I always knew that my mom's death was going to be a heavy burden on me, right? Because we were so volatile. And little did I know when I moved in there in May of 2021 that she was going to die in July of 21. And so there was this piece that happened as a result of that, right? Like I got to be my mom's daughter too.
Wow.
And you know, if somebody would have told me on November 5th, 2018 that Tina, you're going to lose both of your parents. You're going to lose your dad at 5 months and you're going to lose your mom at 2 years, 7 months. I would have never fucking got clean. Never. Who wants to carry the burden of a loss, right? And I'm going to tell you that in the midst of all that, right? One of my employees, man, he was like 28 years old. He got smashed between a boom lift in the building and he died at my job site. And his wife comes in with babies on her hip, right? And if it wasn't for the program, like, I wouldn't have been able to comfort her and offer something, right? Like there was so many things that's happened since I got clean, that I don't know how I'm still here, right? I've lost so many friends to overdoses. I've lost friends of mine, mentors of mine to just, you know, they got the opportunity to die clean. And I say that because, you know, I never want to burden my kids with putting their mom in the ground because she just couldn't say no to drugs.
I got a call that my fiance's brother was getting released from prison or jail, and that he wanted to get clean. And I said, I know where to take him. I said, I know what to do with this. I took him to meetings. His name was Wayne. And the amount of people that came around me and like not only helped me but helped Wayne get clean was like, I have so much love for that program because, man, they just want people to get clean. They want people to get their kids back. They not only want people to get their kids back, they want kids to stop using drugs. And they helped me get this guy to meetings. They got his number, they called him. And my mom came alongside, man, and she got him connected. And she showed up, man. And I wasn't used to my mom showing up. He was doing good. He got to spend a Thanksgiving with his family. He got to spend a Christmas with his family. And then I got a call at work. And it was my fiance's dad. And she said, hey, Wayne just died. And I said, what? Wait, what? And he said, Wayne overdosed in a hotel room last night. A motel room last night. And at this point, I had gone to so many meetings with him. I'd watched him take chip after chip and talk about how he did it. And I remember I was like, dude, I can't wait till you take 6 months, bro. I can't wait till you take a year. And my fiance was with me the whole time. It's her brother. And I remember getting off the phone and saying, I gotta call my mom. So I called my mom and said, I need you to come to my future mother-in-law's house right now. And she said, what? And I said, Wayne just died, Mom. And she goes, no, he didn't. I said, Mom, Wayne died. He overdosed last night. And what's crazy, I've never heard somebody cry like that. When I saw his mom, dude, oh man, it hurts your soul to hear a mother cry for a kid that died. It's bone chilling. Oh man, it makes me so emotional because I immediately, when I saw her, all she could do was thank me for giving her son back. But I heard her voice, man, and it shook me to my core. So, but my mom again, though, my mom showed up. I called her, I needed her, my mother was there. And the only reason, I was able to be there for Wayne and get people around for Wayne was because those people showed up for my mother, right? There's people that my mom wouldn't be clean today if they hadn't shown up for her.
Recovery for me has been a journey, right? I'm going to tell you that when I got clean, they said it'll get different. For me, it's better. I finally left that relationship, and I came out to this area in May of this year, and I felt like a new person. I knew one person coming out here, but I was so fucking desperate for change, right? And so I come out here, man, and I went to go to a meeting at this treatment center, and I'm like, I'm gonna work here. It was just, the minute I walked in the door, it felt magical, and I wanted to be a part of that, right? And so I started to go to meetings out here, and I got a job at that treatment center.
My mom came to me when I was 22, a little bit before Wayne, and told me she wanted to get baptized. And, oh man, I didn't feel that level of anger since that moment at the park. I was furious. I don't know why. I didn't believe in God at this point. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. And again, my fiance, who's been my girlfriend since I was 11, was with me, and she had no idea about my childhood. No clue.
She had no idea about your mom.
No clue. And my mom said that, and I was like, how great. You get to get dipped in some water, and you're a new person, but I live with the stuff that you've done to me every single day of my life. And I said, so that's real convenient for you, Mom. And she asked me to come, and I initially told her no. So I walked out, and Danielle, my fiance, was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because Danielle grew up in church. That was one of our biggest battles back and forth, was that. So she was like, that's one of the greatest things that could happen, She was immediately like, who do you think you are? Kind of. So that's when Danielle, I snapped, right? I had like a rage moment again that I hadn't had for years. And I told her everything. And she reality checked me. She was like, she's like, your mom's about to get baptized and you're angry. And she's like, do you know how contradictory that is to like what you're telling me? And she's like, you battled with your mom not being here, like your mom being, and she's about to go get baptized, but you're mad at that. Doesn't make any sense, right? It's almost like you should be like, what? Like, that's amazing, you know? Not me though. I was angry. So we ended up going, man. And I was emotional. I cried. I don't know why. I like to say now it was the Holy Spirit, but I didn't believe in any of that mess at all. And then she got baptized, started going to church, but the main constant thing was she constantly went to meetings. So my fiance at that point started forcing me to go to church. I say forcing, but she did. And slowly but surely through going to church, like my heart like started to like soften, dude. Like it allowed me to look at my mother in a different aspect, a different perspective. Like I wasn't so, like it says in the Bible, Jesus says like, or it says in the Bible, you must die to yourself, right? Like who am I to hold this over my mother? Like how big of a person do I think I am that I can leverage my mother on this the rest of her life?
Right.
Like who do I think I am? You know, like she went through pain, I went through pain. And then so from going to church and learning about God and Jesus and then going to meetings with my mom and hearing her story and other people's stories, something happened to this kid who had a chip on his shoulder that hated the world and was angry that like my heart started to soften.
This journey has not been easy, but on a daily basis, it's worth it. It's worth it.
Somebody asked me, if you could go back in the past and change what happened, would you? The right answer is, like I said, the right answer is yes. But I would tell you no, I wouldn't. My mother is who she is today because of what she went through, and I am who I am today because of what I went through. You wouldn't be talking to the man you are today if I hadn't have gone through that.
Right.
And I've watched my mother touch so many people's lives. I've watched my mother come up and help people up off of wanting to go back into addiction and talk them out of it. I've watched my mom show up to people who relapsed and been there for them.
I don't know. I was a couple months clean, right? And I'm in a fetal position on the floor at my sponsor's house. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking do this if my kids don't want me to be their mom. Like, I don't want to fucking do this. I don't want to be clean. And man, my sponsor kneels down and she's wiping my tears and she says, Tina, your kids are going to get married one day and they're going to want their mom. And they're going to have babies and they're going to want their mom. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm not waiting that long. This is bullshit, right? And she says, then you're going to miss miracles if you don't just stay put, right? So in May of this year, I got a call from my son and he said, Mom, I'm going to propose to Danielle and I need you to be there. And I'm going to tell you that probably 25 people went to this event, right? And as I'm riding on this boat over to Catalina, it had occurred to me what my sponsor had said. Don't leave before the miracle, right? Like, you may not be able to braid your kid's hair and you've missed that part. Like, you missed out on all that, right? For sure.
Yeah.
We can't change it. But what we can do is just pray for the moments moving forward, right? And so on the ride over there to Catalina, I was looking around and I was thinking, man, if I would have got loaded, I'd have missed this opportunity. When I took a year clean, both of my kids showed up, and that's probably where my relationship started to grow with my son, was at a year clean. You know, he showed up at my birthday, and both of my kids seen too much. You know, their mom had guns on them, and I was selling drugs, and our house got shot up. Like, there's so much to share about, right? Like, I lived this crazy double life, right? Like, I was this lady with a picket fence, and now I'm like this drug addict who hangs around criminals and does bad shit, right? And so my kids seen a lot of that shit. And but as I started to change and as he started to see me change, right? Like they all waited the day my dad died. They all kind of waited for the shoe to drop. And when mom didn't get loaded, my son seen something different in me. You know, she didn't run and use. And you know, recovery has put not only my life back together, but the potential of having my kids back, right? It wasn't when I wanted it, But I'm going to tell you that the first time I got clean in 2013, I got all that shit back too quick, I think.
Right.
You know? And so I've been able to let them have their experiences, right? I've been able to let them have their moments because they have that coming, right? They lived with a mom that did some bad shit, you know? And so I let their processes be their processes, and their truth be their truth, right? There's times they tell stories about when I was using, and I'm like, I don't quite remember it like that. And I'm grateful because my very first counselor told me, does any of that fucking matter? Like, do you have to fight your boy that he didn't take your daughter to school every day, but he only did 5 times, right? Does it fucking matter? The fact of the matter is you forced him to do things that, you know, at 10 or 12 years old, he shouldn't have to do.
Right.
You know, and so I don't know, you know, I reflect back on my life, and like today at 48 years old and almost 5 years clean, I'm absolutely grateful for the fact that I'm an addict, just because I understand and I get an opportunity to help people on a daily basis. And through experience, I know exactly where they are. I know the pain in their eyes. I know the lives they destroyed.
Yeah.
I feel like me as a person, I'm a better person as a result of being an addict.
Right.
I used to say, like, God must hate me if he's real, but I think God had something in plan for Tina Johnson that maybe we didn't understand, and maybe my mom took a long time and a bumpy road to get there.
I just never thought that this would be my life, right? I never thought I'd be sitting in a park talking to somebody about addiction and who I was and who I get to become, you know, who I get to become. And for me, I needed to know I wasn't going to be alone.